Namaskar. So, what's the news? That is the general question we have, like we ask friends when we meet that, how are you? We are guided by news headlines in terms of the topics that we pick for conversation and how those topics lead us to behave in this world which is polarized on many, many issues. But how it ultimately results into some of us having high blood pressure or getting to that stress level, which is not good for our mental well-being. I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Nitin Saraswat, life coach counselor, joining us from Jaipur. नितिन जी, टॉक टू
नमस्कार।
मी द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ, नमस्कार के साथ आपका स्वागत करते हुए सीधा सीधा विषय पर जाते हैं। तो व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ न्यूज in our overall objective if we want to lead a life which is healthy as well as where we feel we are connected and we are a whole.
Ashokji, when we talk about news, actually, there are very different things. If I'm speaking to someone and someone expresses an opinion, then I may or I may not be impacted by the opinion because I have the right to reject the opinion. But the problem is, news come as a hard fact to our mind. Our minds perceive news as a hard fact. So it virtually impacts us positively, negatively. It can create hatred, it can create stress, it can impact every iota of our society. So that's why unfortunate part is we cannot see that even a piece of information comes with a particular narrative and then it becomes a news. We start accepting that narrative of the person who is giving us the news also as a part of the news, and that is where our mental health start getting impacted.
I think you have made a very interesting distinction between the hard fact of what we will say news, or some event has unfolded or something has happened, etc., as compared to the narrative that is built, which is a flow of interpretation, which is a flow of certain ideology also sometimes. And so talk to me. As a responsible citizen, we we feel it is our duty to take a stand, and when we start doing that, it results into sometimes sense of helplessness also. Address that.
That helplessness is something which creates a lot of anxiety in people. I can give you an example. I was having a counseling client, and not one counseling client, more than 4 or 5 people who were actually who have lived in Ukraine, who were Jews who shifted from Ukraine to US or Europe, and they were extremely stressed by this narrative that news was spreading. I don't know what exactly how much others are getting impacted by this news narrative, but one thing is that this Ukraine Russia war is impacting them. But another fact is, more than the real war, it was the war of the words which the news channels are bringing as a narrative, which was impacting their mind. And they were deeply impacted and moved by those news pieces. So I think a lot of time, sometimes media is very insensitive, sometimes we are hypersensitive, but yes, news are impacting and polarizing us more than anything else in this world today.
So now, is that polarization a part of our duty? As I said, sometimes you feel that being responsible means taking a stand. So let's take some example. For example, just 2 3 days ago, there was a news related to certain words seen on the walls of Jawaharlal Nehru University. And they were anti Brahmins. So they said some of our viewers must have seen that Brahmin Bharat Chodo, and there will be blood and we will image, etc. So now this could be the handiwork of a small sample of some people who want to create division and sort of disturbing environment. It could be representing larger group, but what happens is the way you interpret it and react to it, it ends up actually becoming a dividing line. So it's a very kind of a difficult and delicate thing to be proactive and yet not let it escalate in the direction that is not healthy. Yeah.
That is where I think the what needs to be told, how it is to be told, that's one part of the responsibility. And that is where I think media is failing. But why to blame media? Why we, the so called educated people, we cannot desensitize ourselves? And why can't we ask ourselves a question? How to take this hype out of media? Whatever media is serving you, because these days YouTube is also media. There's a free speech world. Internet is can be bombarded with any propaganda. So we have to take this responsibility, and we need to start nurturing our minds to become desensitized to the hype that a piece of information comes with. And the moment we can take this hype away, we can actually protect our mental well being. Otherwise, this particular news, I was speaking to a section of people and they were very angry about it. And why were they angry? Actually, there's a statement you made. It was a very important statement. When you said we have to take a stand, then what is the stand we are talking about? Our stand is intellectual stand. Our stand is supposed to be a stand which is a thought revolution. And for a thought to get revolutionized, the first thing is you have to be in a sane mind to present that thought to many so that the thought can bring in a revolution. But unfortunately, what is happening, in the name of taking a stand, we start getting agitated. Sometimes people can start taking actions, not thoughts, actions. And sometimes people make very hitting rebuttals or remarks. And that is what is hate mongering is all about. All we need to do is we need to desensitize our mind, and we have to start separating hard fact as a news and narrative as a thought that someone has and that can be rejected.
So I'll take an example to understand your point of view a little bit better. And this is also related to a news which is very disturbing in its origin as live-in relationship boy Aftab taking that horrifying step, which he admits of having not just killed Shraddha Walker, but having thrown her after making so many pieces, etc., and all that. So now, on day-to-day basis, you are getting more and more news of this ongoing thing where he's in jail and they have a narco test and all that. So I'll bring you to a conversation which I heard on a television channel from India, where the questionnaire Srinivasan, I believe his name, he was talking to Chief Minister of Assam, Mr. Biswas. Now Biswas was mentioning this as an extension of love jihad. In his support, he was saying that in the narco test, he said that he is going to get 72 hoods, or I mean, this is a good thing which he has done in that test, he said. So he said this, his mind was functioning in a pattern. And reporter, to his credit, was bringing more references where he said that this is not the isolated instance. There have been Hindu boys who have mistreated uh, their girlfriends, etc. So I'll leave this by mentioning the counter comment by Mr. Biswas, Chief Minister. He's saying that this is the difference between left and right. You will interpret it in this way, and I will interpret it in this way. So after that, there is no kind of space for a dialogue, and I don't know which side to take. Actually, your general response to this conversation in the context of how we let news make its impact.
Well, now the point is why we have to be a left leaning or a right leaning. Why can't we be the center person? And even if you're not a center person, why we cannot see a piece of news as a piece of news? And why we have to start dwelling on the interpretation, the narrative that is being served to us. If there is no interpretation done, no narrative served, people will see it as a crime. They will say, oh my God, there was a crime, there was a criminal, and there was a crime. And even if there is a pattern which is happening in the crime, we must see it as some criminals committing some types of crime. Now we can start giving it colors. We can start giving it color of femininity. We can start giving it color of religion. We can start giving it color of even caste or the area. Now all these are narratives, and 90% of cases narratives are being fed for very petty purposes, and we become a part of that game that somebody else is playing. Unfortunate part is that the more negative hype you create, the more sensational the news become, and that it sells like a hot cake. And that is where the mental well-being is taking a hit.
So
When
when you,
people
please continue. Yeah.
when people watch news channel these days, a lot of crime, a lot of fear is being served. And that fear and that crime is unfortunately impacting the way they behave. They doubt, they become negative, their mental peace takes a toll. And sometimes, unknowingly, people carry that negativity into their days and they do not realize that it is happening. There are rifts happening within houses just because somebody is right leaning and somebody is left leaning. And
So
unfortunately,
yeah,
nobody is
I'm,
taking it. Yeah,
I'm tempted to bring to your attention. Recently, I was reading somewhere that while dating, now boys and girls are also paying attention to the ideology to which the other person belongs. So they say that if this say one is liberal or right more, they say that getting to know more of the right winger ends up in sort of a disturbing relationship, and vice versa. So so we are going to kind of work and increase this polarization in this manner. But I don't uh, have any way to question anybody's judgment, but from the point of view of mental well-being, um, if you're passionate about certain news, then of course you are going to pay more attention to that kind of discussion. And this artificial intelligence and the way algorithm functions, you will end up getting more and more of similar YouTube uh, sort of presentations or on Facebook, which kind of align with what you are thinking. So the chances of your being objective are reduced day by day.
very true. That's what is happening. Actually, there's a psychological warfare happening. It's like we don't realize, but we are made to buy things. And you don't realize, you search for anything on Google, and all of a sudden your feed will be bombarded with that particular thing for days and days. You search for camera, and you will see loads of camera ads coming. So there is a psychological warfare happening. You go on Facebook, you like a particular, you read a particular type of left leaning or right leaning news, and all of a sudden your feed will be filled with those particular feed news. Now the problem is, we are being hacked, and we don't realize that we are being hacked. Our thought process are being hacked, our ideologies are being hacked, and our own ability to think is being hacked. And
When you,
by the
yeah,
time
when
we
you,
realize, it's too late.
yeah, when you mention about our ability to think, and I vaguely remember a definition of being intelligent. Intelligent is that person who can hold on to different type of ideas which are not in agreement with each other at the same time, and remain harmonious or something like that. So that ability we are actually consciously and willingly letting go of. So our new definition of intelligence becomes like little bit narrowed in that context. So how it affects our mental well-being and our ability to actually be happy in any given environment.
So, any piece of news that can agitate our thought process, that can bring anger, apathy, or anxiety, any negativity, it is bound to create some kind of dent on our mental well being. And unfortunately, it is very underlying. It's like you will never realize it that this is happening. That is why people will never complain that, oh my God, this piece of information, this piece of news has actually spoiled my day, because they will never be able to realize it. Like the news piece that a boyfriend has killed the girlfriend would impact almost everyone in a live-in relationship, but they will never get to know about that. What if we can desensitize ourselves and see it as a crime, a criminal and a crime? When we start seeing things the way they are presented, the narrative stays, the story stays in the head, and the way the visuals are presented, etc., 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 the way it's colored, it starts impacting the deep subconscious, and it creates a whole lot of anxiety. And that anxiety is actually not good for anybody's mental health.
Well, let us look at the role that politics plays in this. And many times, our conversation, if I say 30 to 40% of the space of conversation is somewhere rooted in the politics. When I say politics, that takes us to certain leaders also. So you have a favorite leader, and you would, let's say, you would root for him or her. And there'll be some people who will always have sort of a mudslinging ready as soon as that name is dropped. And this I have seen here for President Trump in America. And so if you like some of his acts and you mention, there will be some people who would probably be very unhappy with you. I see similar pattern in India with reference to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Some people like him very much. Some people object to anything related to Hinduism or something. So talk to me how to navigate oneself, keeping focus on mental well-being in this kind of depolarized environment.
Absolutely. We have to look at, the first thing that we need to look at is the definition of being thoughtful. I am thoughtful when I can coexist with a very opposite thought of what I think is right. That is being thoughtful. If I start seeing a thought that challenges my thought as growth, then I start becoming thoughtful. So the first thing is our own training. But for that to happen, we have to start bringing changes in our education system, in our debates on the media, and everything at an individual level, or we have to start realizing that it's okay if there is a thought process that I utterly disbelieve in. It's okay that if I am X and a Y exists, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I don't have to fight tooth and nail to exist, because all of a sudden, if I believe in something and I see people around me not believing in it, I start feeling it's a question of survival. It's not question of my survival at all. I can survive with a very different thought process. So I can also disagree with the piece of news that is being served to me, or a piece of narrative that is being served to me with the
Be
news.
multiple ways to respond to any news, but let's go to the basic focus that we have, that is mental well-being. And what are the basic tips that you think may help us in maintaining a sense of poise in the face of news that may, of course, news by nature is not always going to be a good news. It would indeed be a bad or something that we don't like. Yeah.
So, when we were a child, we were told to develop a habit to start our day with the newspaper reading.
Yes.
Or later on, we were taught to start our day with watching a piece of news. What I would strongly suggest now is do not start your day with reading a newspaper. Or even if you start your day with reading newspaper, look for positive news first. Do not look for news that are sensational. To keep a filter for sensation. That's the first thing. Second, read the news, reject the narrative. Allow your mind to create your own narrative, or the best is even do not create your own narrative, create understanding. Try to be very neutral. That's the second thing. Third thing, if you read a very disturbing piece of news, if you read something that has shaken you up, make sure to do some kind of breathing exercises, or make sure to look for the impact of that news on your mental well-being. Believe me, when I counsel people, and I counsel people who have some kind of mental health issues, I always suggest the family members of the person who is having some kind of distress, mental distress, that they should also get counseled. Because even one person with some kind of negativity can impact the whole environment, and that in psychology we call emotional convergence. So make sure no news is permitting the negativity around you. Shut that noise. Even if you read something which has shaken you up, tell yourself it's okay, the world is imperfect, but let me search for the tunnel at the end, the light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, our mind is so obsessed with the darkness that it is very natural for our mind to get stuck with the darkness in the tunnel. So we have to create a narrative which sees the light at the end of the tunnel. It's like in in place of looking at, oh my God, a girl was murdered. Look at, thank God, now nobody can get away with that kind of a crime. If you commit a crime of that sort, you will be hanged. The society will not leave spare you. You will be caught very soon. So anybody who is committing crime is being brought to justice. The tunnel at the end of the light. The light at the end of the tunnel, sorry. So look to create a positive narrative in your head. Look for the impact that news or any kind of narrative is making over you. And do not let that discussion become your background noise, because any kind of disturbing background noise will not help any cause. On the contrary, it will impact your mental well being, it will impact your happiness and your energy levels. So just protect your energy levels, your happiness, because your day has to be bright to bring in any bright change in the world.
Lastly, the way we react is also related to how we interpret our own identity in the context of that particular news. And many times we are confused
Yep.
as to the role that we have chosen to play for ourselves, and the way we react to the news, it just create a sense of anxiety, stress, and fuming without actually having a positive contribution to for the improvement of the situation. So you want to say something about this as we conclude?
Yeah, that's very true. It's my identity is something that I have to work upon. Like, if my identity is in a box, I have to break that box. You have to be above a caste, a, a state, a country, a gender, or a political ideology. You are an evolving mechanism. Your thought process need to keep evolving. So you need to understand one thing: what you believe in today as right, tomorrow you may be laughing at your own self and saying, oh my God, I thought that to be right, or oh my God, I thought that to be wrong. So do not even believe in your own that is only right or that is only wrong thought process, because you may change it as you have been changing it as you grow older. So your identity has to be more humanistic. Your identity has to be more like an evolving mechanism. And when you start becoming an evolving mechanism, then the way you react to things become very mellow.
So I think on that note, we'll extend our thanks to you for this wonderful analysis, where some of our viewers probably will appreciate the need to have a balanced response, or be clear as to how news is affecting you, and that becomes very, very important in maintaining a sense of mental well-being. So once again, I cannot thank you enough for uh,
Thank you,
words
man.
of wisdom backed by your own experience of having counsel people across the globe, not just belonging to one particular nation. So that makes it universal. And as you concluded, having human approach, I think is the way to go for each one of us. So once again, thanking Dr. Nitin Saraswat, life coach and
Thank
counselor,
you very much.
and thanking all of you with lots of good wishes. This is Ashok Vyas. Namaste.